Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, we're talking about audiophile record pressings from Analogue Productions and Rhino Records. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So like a lot of you out there, I never really got into these big, expensive audiophile pressings. For the longest time, it was mobile fidelity. Even though I do have a couple of MoFi releases, I've got a pressing of Dark Side of the Moon from 1979, which, Dark Side of the Moon is my favorite album of all time. So that's why I have that pressing. I've got, I think, a Cyndi Lauper silver label pressing, which I picked up for like 25, maybe $30 a few years ago. I have a Miles Davis kind of blue one step, which I think is my only one step. But for the most part, mobile fidelity releases have been kind of pricey, and that's what's kind of kept me away from them, especially when comparing those to a standard pressing that you're going to pick up for, up to a couple of years ago, 25, maybe 30, $35. There wasn't as big of a sound difference that made me want to pay 2 or 3 or 4 times that price sometimes for some of those higher end MoFi releases. It also kind of goes with the UHQR releases. I do have a couple of those also. But, those were, I think, $120 or $125 when I started buying those. I think they're now like $150. And even though there have been some really great releases, some really great albums over the last couple of years that I really love, just way too much money for me to drop on a single album. And then a few years ago, I started getting into these Analogue Productions releases from Acoustic Sounds. I think the first one I picked up was August and Everything After by Counting Crows. And I think I did a video on the channel here about how much I was impressed with this album. This is easily one of the best sounding albums in my record collection. And when I started buying these albums, I want to say they were like 50 or $55, and now they're up to like 60 or 65, which, is still kind of creeping up into that price range of being, right at the top I would pay for an absolute, one of my favorite albums of all time. And I haven't bought a lot of these because of that price, so I've got that one. I've got Stand Up by Jethro Tull, which is probably my favorite Jethro Tull album. And then Analogue Productions several years ago now, did an entire box set of all the albums from The Doors. And it was several $100s, and I wasn't going to pay that much money, even though The Doors have long been one of my favorite bands of all time. It was just a lot of money for me to put down on those albums. But they were available individually. I started picking those up earlier, I think it was like middle part of last year or later last year. So I picked up 3 albums. I've got the Doors self-titled album. I picked up Strange Days. And then I also got L.A. Woman. I grabbed L.A. Woman when they also released the UHQR version of this. Just because, it's my favorite album from the Doors. But $150 was a lot to put down on that. So $60 was, even though it is still pretty pricey, it was a lot more manageable than $150. And then over the last year or two, Analogue Productions has been doing the Atlantic 75 series, which is just a bunch of great albums from across Atlantic Records' 75-year history. And, there's been nothing but glowing reviews about every single one of those albums. For $60, it's still a lot of money to spend on an album. But I think you're definitely getting value comparing that to what you're paying for some of those one-steps or UHQR pressings, which in comparison, these Analogue Productions releases sound as good, maybe if not just a little bit better in some of those cases. But even though there's been a number of those Atlantic 75 releases that I really wanted, still $60 is still a lot for me to drop on an album. And because the higher cost of these albums is really what has stopped me from buying more of them, even though there were quite a few of those Atlantic 75 albums I would have loved to have. They did the Stone Temple Pilots Core and Purple. I would have loved to have those, but $60 is still a lot for me to drop on an album. So I've really kind of stuck to just a core few albums that I picked up from them. And even comparing a lot of these Analogue Productions releases to Mobile Fidelity releases, I really always come back to his AP releases as being better albums overall than what you're getting from anyone else. But that all changed when Rhino announced their Rhino High Fidelity series. And I waited. They've released, I want to say like 18 releases so far. they're definitely cheaper. They're like $40 compared to the 60 you're gonna pay for Analogue Productions. But I wanted to hold off and see what the reviews were before I start buying them. And so far, all of these Rhino High Fidelity releases have all been cut by Kevin Gray from the original Analogue tapes. They're pressed to optimal. They're presented in these nice, I would say the jackets are very comparable to what you're getting with Analogue Productions, but you're getting these albums for $20 cheaper. I think the first Rhino High Fidelity release I considered grabbing when it was announced was the self-titled debut album from Black Sabbath. I think it was limited to 5,000 copies, and it was announced, and then several days later, maybe it was a week or so later, I went back. Finally, I was like, fine, I'm just going to pre-order it. I went back and they were sold out. And quickly I learned that that's something that happens with a lot of these Rhino High Fidelity releases, even though they are limited to 5,000 copies, and that sounds like a lot. For these like higher valued albums or these more popular releases, they tend to go pretty quick. So in January, for the Rhino Start Your Ear Off Right series, Rhino Records reissued several of their Rhino High Fidelity releases, including the self-titled debut album from Black Sabbath. The only difference is between this and the first pressing was the first pressing, it was limited to 5,000 copies, and it was numbered. This is a unnumbered version, which I don't really care about it having a number stamped on it. I just want the audio. It's the same price. This is something that I compare it to. I think this is the third or fourth pressing I have of this album. This is hands down the best sounding version of it I own. So of course the way it always works is I bought 3 of those albums from the Doors from Analogue Productions, and my plan was to eventually buy all 6 Doors albums from AP. But Rhino Records released an entire box set with all of the Doors albums in it. And once again, I went back and forth on it, whether or not I wanted to pick it up, because I already had those 3 AP releases, but I didn't want to grab the entire box set when I already had 3 of those albums. And then recently they reissued all of them individually, which worked out perfect for me. So I grabbed Morrison Hotel, which is my, for the longest time, this was my favorite album of the Doors. I think finally it's LA Woman has kind of crept up and taken its place. I got that. I grabbed a copy of Waiting for the Sun, and then The Soft Parade. And I'm a big fan of the Doors. I've got multiple pressings of all these albums. I've now gone back, because of how good these Rhino High Fidelity releases sound, I've gone back and sold most of my other pressings. And as for the sound quality of these albums, especially for $40, when most new releases, if you're getting a gatefold release, it's generally going to be $30 to $35 anyway. If there's an album that's released through the Rhino High Fidelity series that I enjoy, I'm going to grab it, because for the price, it's just going to be really hard to beat the sound quality that you're getting on these albums. And it's great to have an option of really high superior sound quality for a price that's not going to break the bank. And I'm not sure if this is how Rhino is going to handle this moving forward, but a couple of months ago they announced the next 2 releases in the Rhino High Fidelity series. So of course I went on right away, because I knew that one of these were going to sell out really quickly. The other one I knew would take a little bit more time, but I wanted to have both of these on vinyl. So I grabbed Paranoid by Black Sabbath, which is, I've already had the box set that came out a couple years ago. I had a 2016 or 2015 pressing also, but I knew for the price I needed to have this copy. And then I also got Alice Cooper, Love It to Death, which I had an original pressing of. I don't think it was original pressing. I think I had a second or third pressing. It was still an early 70s pressing, because it didn't have the original artwork on there. But I missed out on the reissue back in 2016 or 2017. And that reissue sells for like well over $100, which is, I wasn't going to pay that for it, but I was I definitely paid the $40 for this one. And I guess I should add that these jackets for these Rhino High Fidelity releases are a little bit bigger than a standard jacket, so they don't fit in a normal sleeve. So I had to go with the 12 and 3/4 inch sleeves from Vinyl Storage Solutions, which is out of Canada. I'll put a link down below if you want to grab some of them. But these Rhino High Fidelity releases fit perfectly in them. So first up, you got Alice Cooper, Love to Death. All the Rhino High Fidelity releases all come with a nice obi strip on there. This one says 180 gram vinyl, cut from original analog master tapes by Kevin Gray, Coherent Audio, pressed to optimal media, heavyweight gatefold jacket, includes exclusive insert with commentary from producer Bob Ezrin, limited numbered edition of 5,000. There's let's see on there. And on the back side of the obi is just the track listing. And then as far as the jacket It's a really nice glossy finish to the album jacket itself, front and back. And as far as like comparing this to an Analogue Productions release, this is the AP LA Woman. You see side by side. I mean, they're nice. They're both nice, thick jackets. Like size wise, I don't really see any difference between the two, other than, you know, the AP releases are on 2 discs, cut at 45 RPM, which there are albums you can't do that with. You know, so there's limitations to the albums that they could do, but you know, it's really just the second disc cut at 45 RPM and $20 cheaper. So for these Rhino High Fidelity releases, they do have their own label on there. It just says Rhino High Fidelity with the name of the album on there. They're always on standard black wax. And I do like that they went back to the original artwork for Love to Death. As you can see, Alice's thumb there, it looks like something else, so it was edited out of a lot of the versions of this album that have been released since the very first pressing. So it's nice to see them go back to that. But this is a gatefold, so I'll show you the inside of the gatefold there. And then for the insert, I love the reproduction of the outside of the master tape. And then inside is the writing from Bob Ezrin. Also for $40, they don't come in paper sleeves. At least they come in a nice polyline sleeve. I mean, I'm still going to take the albums and run them all through my ultrasonic cleaner, but at least it has that like bare minimum sleeve in there. And then the album that a lot of people out there were excited for, including myself, that is Black Sabbath's Paranoid. So this one says 180 gram vinyl, cut from original analog master tapes by Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio, pressed to Optimal Media, heavyweight gatefold jacket, exclusive insert with commentary by engineer Tom Allen, limited numbered edition of 5,000. So that's what I should say. I didn't show on the Love to Death, but the number is on the back side on the corner. It might be kind of hard to see because it's a darker jacket, but I've got number 4,131 out of 5,000. Maybe if I can get the glare on there a little bit, you can see a little better. But that's where it's numbered there. And then the Love It to Death I have is number 911 out of 5,000. You can see a little bit better on that Love It to Death. But same thing, nice glossy jacket there. Backside. I will say that a lot of people out there, I don't think, know that the original idea or the original story behind the artwork on here, the name of the album was supposed to be War Pigs, and that's why this guy is on the front of it, and they decided to keep the original artwork. So I was always somebody when I was younger too, I didn't understand the Paranoid along with the artwork, but that's the story behind it. This is same thing, another gatefold is the inside of the jacket, which is the same as any standard release of the album has been for the last 50 years. And then same thing, comes in a nice poly-lined inner sleeve. So as you can see, it's got that the Rhino High Fidelity label on there. And then you've got the reproduction of the outside of the master tape, which, like I said, it's kind of cool. Something that's kind of interesting, kind of look over. And then you got pictures, and then the story by engineer Bob Allen on there. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Love to know what you guys think of this. Have you picked up any of these Rhino High Fidelity releases? Have you compared them to any Analogue Productions releases? Love to know what you guys think of the comparison, because for the longest time, I've been saying that those AP releases are the better bang for the buck, you know, especially comparing them to MoFi. I'm leaning now more towards these Rhino High Fidelity releases. I love how they sound. You know, I think for $20 cheaper, you're getting a product that's equally as good as those AP albums. But we'll see what they do here in the future. But like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.